James, thanks a lot for talking to us. And even now, you're in a really fantastic location, Woodstock, and all the rest of it. So we can only dream of such things. So you're in the kind of New York right now. You're just telling us now you're about 120, 130 miles away from where you're going to be going back to play a gig tomorrow, which is great, by the way, that you're playing. But tell us a little bit about how are things in New York? How are things at the moment? How are you feeling about stuff?
Well, to be honest, it's pretty dire. There's no gigs. There's outdoor gigs. All the venues that we play are closed and don't show any signs of opening up at all. And now the winter's coming. Even the outdoor things that we've been doing will obviously stop, I think, because it's just too cold. And I'm pretty. I mean, people are pretty pessimistic. Actually, I think doesn't seem to be any end in sight. To solve the problem. Not until the middle of next year.
Yeah.
Until there's a vaccine. I just don't see any. People won't go in the bars. I mean, it's not in America's. The problem with America is that it won't act as one. So you've got the New York people are wearing their masks and they're not really going to places indoors and not congregating indoors. Whereas if you go to other states, they're acting like the virus doesn't even exist. And so it's a very mixed bag out here. For the virus.
Yeah, I imagine in the southern states, or the Republican area, I imagine there's a slightly different approach to the wearing of masks.
I mean, there really is, and but in New York, which is where I live, of course, the bars are just not open. There's outdoor dining, but there's no indoor activities, and obviously music is for the most part, the venues are obviously indoors, and just standing next to people, and there's no separation, so they're all closed, and I don't know when they're going to open. Just don't know. I don't see it happening.
So Tony Chapman's with us, an old friend.
Hi, Tony.
He runs the Keep Cardiff Live site, and he spent some time in the States. He wanted to talk to you a little bit about New York, actually.
Yeah, I mean, only, just holidays, that sort of thing. And, a few times I've been to New York. I love it. And it's such a vibrant place. And what you're saying is it's so sad, isn't it? Because I should imagine as well, there's a real music community there. There's a real buzz in certain bars and areas of the city. And I guess what you're saying now is, that's sort of eroded. Do you think, can you see any way that is going to change? I mean, obviously you've mentioned about the vaccine, but in the meantime, is there anything that you think could happen? Is there a community sort of thing happening there at all?
Well, I mean, you're absolutely right to say that. There definitely is a community, and in a lot of ways, it's a small town. Everybody does know each other and goes out to support each other when they play. Certainly in my community, one thing I miss the most is not going to see my friends play wherever they would play in their bars and clubs and that. And obviously that's all gone. I mean, and you can't meet up. It's very it's not the New York that No. It's not like New York used. It's just not like we're all used to it being. We do online things, there's music online. Occasionally you'll do a band gig, like Jesse Mallin's doing a thing. He's at the Barry Electric, and there are people play as a band. In fact, I'm doing a band show at the Rockwood in a couple of weeks, but that'll be the first time I've done a gig with the band for at least 6 months. And there's no audience, of course. You're just playing in front of it's just going to be a live online thing. I mean, people are trying to hang out, but there's an element of fear about it. People are worried about meeting up, and the virus, it's on your mind. And the main places we would go and meet and hang out are all closed, and have been closed for like 6 months. They don't show any sign of opening up. So it's really like a holding pattern. Everybody's like just waiting for things to change, and it might not be for another 6 months, might be for a year. it's very disconcerting. And you know, some of the musicians I know have left the city and thinking about leaving the city and trying to go into other professions. You know, I know people, brilliant musicians, who are just there learning computer programming and things like that.
Yeah, we've had a similar thing over here this week with the Chancellor actually say that he thinks it'd be a good idea for creative people, musicians, to retrain, which has caused a lot of a kickback, obviously, you know. But yeah, I mean, it's actually a reality for some people, is that now, you know, they've put their whole lives into music, and then, as you say, they're retraining now to be computer programmers or whatever, you know.
I mean, what kind of a world is that, you know, with no music, and all the great musicians that have got to stop doing music now and be a computer programmer? Is that where it's going? Because it's desperate. Sad. I mean, people do need music. I do online gigs, and people love to watch the shows online. I know they're not the same, but people learning to live without the live experience. But I cannot imagine that it's going to be like that in a year. It's got to change. We can't live in a world where there's not going to be gigs and music. I think we have to have a bit more faith in the future than that.
Exactly. I think something will, you know, some idea will work. It's got to. If you look back in time, there's always been music. There's always been minstrels or theatres, that sort of thing. But it's just, yeah, human beings are very creative, so we've got to think of some way of getting around this problem, and that's why I think the community thing is a strong thing. If you can hold that together, then perhaps that will work, you know.
Well, you've got to remember that the community of music only is as strong as the audiences that come out to it. Like you need to have people to come to the gigs to buy the tickets and enable people to pay the rent. You know, it's nothing's free. You know, it's not like the rent suddenly stopped being, the landlord suddenly stopped asking you for your rent or anything. So we've got to raise money. I've got a bit of unemployment out here from the state, which has helped me a lot. But you need an audience, you know, and the actual online gigs they started off being quite lucrative. Well, lucrative is not the word, but you get a decent amount of money. And now over the months, you know, the money's really gone right down. So the enthusiasm for those gigs, because everybody's doing them, has kind of dropped off as well. So there's not the same amount of money coming in from those online things.
No.
It's difficult.
What about the practicalities, James, of rehearsing with your band? How are you managing to do that? And when you play together, do you have to like wander in masks and stand away from each other to set up and stuff? I don't know.
Well, I have a confession, and that is that we never rehearse.
Well done.
I've never really rehearsed with my band. Okay. We just learn the songs. Maybe I'll send them on a tape, or we'll listen to I've made a bunch of records. So if I have a set list, I'll send the set list off, and then people will they're pretty familiar with the songs. So, but we never rehearse. So that takes care of that.
Tell me a little bit about the band, because I know you've kind of accumulated some great musicians, and it must have been quite exciting for you putting that together, I suppose.
I mean, that's the thing about New York. There's so many great musicians, and I've been working with Aaron Comes for many years, the Spin Doctors drummer, and we've been friends for a long while, and he's been playing with me forever. Drew Mortali plays the bass. He's my great mate. The keyboard player. I mean, in New York, you have to have 2 or 3 of everybody, because the music, at least this is what it used to be like. The musicians who are great are busy with lots of different projects. So, like, for instance, Ben, the piano player who plays with me, he was on tour last year with Lyle Lovett. So you got to get another keyboard player. My bass player plays in like 3 bands, and sometimes he can't play with you. And you need at least 3 drummers, because the drummers are busy as well. So you have to have a team of people, because it's very hard to have a consistent band. But luckily there is a load of great musicians in New York that can learn your set pretty quick and fit right in. So that's great. That's one of the things about being here. It's good.
Sorry, James. Do you remember the early days of when you first came out to New York and you started trying to put this together? Did you already have that kind of network to, Not
really. I met Aaron because I was doing an album out here, and then he lived in New York, and he was my first friend, and he said, look, if you want to do any gigs, I'll play with you. And then I just had a couple of friends that I just that I'd met, and that was it really. I just built it up from there. I was lucky really, and I just met a few people and started playing mainly at the Rockwood Music Hall, which is down in the Lower East Side. And then just from there, you know, and just by being here, you meet people, and your reputation spreads, and you meet people, and you can get great people to do a gig for you here for, like, you know, 150 to, if you can pay, you have to pay a bit of money. But you can get the greatest musicians in the world to play with you for $150, $200 for a gig. They'll learn your set, and it's that was an eye opener for me. Really, it was an education by coming here.
Sounds amazing. And Tony knows that I'm not particularly, you know, I don't spend a lot of money, so that I might struggle with that concept. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Leicester, and I listened to Leicester Mist earlier today.
Okay.
Yeah, which is lovely. And we're both Cardiff City fans, okay? So, you know,
right on.
There's the Cardiff Leicester. We've had a few little matches over the years, you know. We've had a few adventures, but when Leicester won the Prem, I'm guessing here you were in the States. What was that like for you?
Well, it was a funny day because when we won, I wasn't because we won by default, you know, and I think Chelsea beat somebody, and that meant that we won the league. Something like that happened. And so I got a phone call, said, "Oh, you've won the league." And I went down to this bar called Legends. I got on the subway. I didn't really know if anybody was going to be down there. And I went to this bar, which is a football bar in the Midtown. And I walked down into this sports bar, and there was like 50, 60 Leicester City supporters, none of which I knew. I didn't know any of them. Yeah. And we just started cheering and laughing and getting drunk. And then the TV cameras came down from like NBC or something, and they interviewed me. And the next thing I know, I had about 7 pints of Guinness at this point. And then and suddenly I'm on the television all over America as being the Leicester City supporter cheering on Leicester City. And you can actually watch it. It's online. I think, you know, some video of me hammered outside this bar.
Oh, well, we'll have to find that. I didn't know anything about that. What was a kind of typical day in your life then, James? As a kind of, you know, I mean, in normal times, you know, I mean, as a musician, what do you have like a routine? I mean, in terms of writing, etc., or, you know?
Yeah, I mean, not a routine, but I will definitely try to write a lot every day. And I tend to stay up late. So New York is New York is one of them towns. It suits me. I like to be out late. I don't like to get up early in the morning. I like to be out listening to music late at night. So I'll generally kind of get into bed any time after, like, it could be 3 or 4. And then I'll get up about 11 and I'll maybe get a coffee, and then I'll try and watch a bit of TV. Then I'll try and write some music and see if the muse is there. Then I'll go and get something to eat. Then I'll come home, watch a bit more telly, maybe try and write some songs, and then go out at night and see if I can find some of my friends playing somewhere.
Wow, sounds amazing.
That would be something like what I do.
It sounds like to me like the absolutely bloody perfect lifestyle, to be honest. Yeah, if only we could do that. I also noticed that you play some lovely guitars. I think in the song I saw you playing, you were doing a performance. I think you were playing Gibson. It might have been the J45, maybe the one that I think similar to Springsteen uses, I think.
Well, you know what? I just bought. I heard you talking about guitars earlier.
Yeah.
I've just bought my guitar collection is not very. I don't have a big guitar collection. I have that's an advanced jumbo. That is the Gibson, which I bought about 1998 in London, and it was the first real guitar that real good acoustic that I'd ever owned. I got a record deal on Columbia Records, and I had a little bit of money, and I thought I need a good guitar, so I bought that. And that's been my main guitar for years.
Lovely.
And then about like 7 or 8 years ago, I bought a Martin HD28 MP, which I use that a lot now. That's different sounding guitar, but a beautiful guitar with Fishman the Fishman Matrix thing. And then a couple of months ago, I didn't intend to do this, but I got a great deal with Waterloo guitars, which are like a Collings. I don't know if you know Collings, the Austin acoustic manufacturers. They make a cheaper brand called Waterloo, which is meant to be like the old 30s Gibsons that they made, the cheaper guitars from the 30s and 20s and 30s. And I bought one of those, got it cheap because they give me a great artist deal. And it's wonderful. I'm absolutely in love with it. So they're kind of my three main acoustic guitars, the Gibson, and now this Waterloo guitar, which is beautiful, which is lovely, and then the Martin HD28. So that's really my oh, and I bought that. I've got this thing called a Griffon, right, which is like a mini 12-string guitar, which I play a lot, and I love it. It's an incredible instrument, and check that out. It's called a Griffon. It's made by Joe Violette or something like that, and I bought that at Rudy's guitar shop like a couple of years ago, and I absolutely love it. I wish I could. It's upstairs. I can't really show it to you, but it's a killer. Great, it's like a small-bodied 12-string.
Sounds lovely. Tony used to work in a guitar shop, by the way, James. So he's he's the other side of the counter, you know.
Oh, right on, yeah.
Yeah.
Right on.
So
I don't know much about guitars, you know. My mate Dave, I know people who really know a lot about guitars, but I don't. I'm not like an expert who can say, oh, you know, that's a 1974.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't an expert either. But I knew how to sell them. I would just say, this isn't a very good one. This is a good one. Go for that one.
The more expensive one.
Yeah, but I mean, that sounds interesting what you're saying about the different guitars. And I saw one of the videos where you're playing the Martin as well.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
you seem to have a real natural feel. You know, everything you've listened to quite a bit of your music over the last couple of days. And that's what I love about your stuff as well. It's like a very organic, natural feel. It doesn't seem that it's very sort of pre-constructed. It seems like there's a live band playing, you know, when you actually record.
Well, I like to. You mean when I play the guitar?
Yeah, I mean when you know on your recordings that I've noticed, you know, you're trying to get that live feel about. You're trying to get that sort of feel in your recorded stuff as well.
Well, I love to play acoustic guitar, and it's kind of, especially on my last album and maybe on the Another Life album, I put the acoustic guitar kind of in the center of what I do. I write on acoustic guitar exclusively, and I'll try and come up with a riff inside the song as well, which I'll come up with on the acoustic guitar, and that's definitely been my, you know, the center of what I do, the acoustic guitar, one way or the other. Even if I'll put other instrument, you know, some of the albums may be a bit more produced, but the center of it is always the acoustic guitar, because I do a lot of gigs solo, so I've got to be able to like make the guitar work, make the song work in that, you know, with an acoustic guitar and my voice. So that's why it is, you know, that's why the guitar is so important.
I noticed as well, James, in that video where you're playing the Gibson, you're playing it to a mic as opposed to using a pickup. Is that what you?
What video? What video do you mean?
Oh, which one was it? Was it a song when you're singing about New York?
Was it a recent one?
Don't know. No, I think it was a few years back actually. But I just noticed you were playing to a mic as opposed to having using a pickup on it.
Yeah, I don't know what video it is. I mean, a mic is always better than a pickup. You know what I mean? So it depends on the situation. If I'm in the studio, I rarely use the pickup. I'll always use a microphone in front of the acoustic. You just get a better sound that way. But I do. I mean, it's a constant struggle. I've just bought this Gibson, and I bought this. I didn't know what pickup. Sorry, this Waterloo guitar, and I'm thinking, what pickup shall I put in it? Because, you know, as a guitarist, this what do you call it? I mean, just the way to try to get the acoustic guitar to sound great is really important to guitarists. So we're always struggling to find the best pickup with the best, you know, what's the best way to go about it. So I bought this K&K for the Waterloo.
Oh,
and
they're very good.
I bought this thing called a red eye. Well, I'm figuring it out. You know, I'm trying it through this red eye thing which I bought, and trying to make, you know, it's a constant you know, you're trying to get it sounding good. So I have Fishman in my guitars, but I tried this K&K thing, and I haven't done it. The thing about the virus thing is I've not really been able to do a proper gig recently with the K&K, so I'm looking forward to trying to see how it sounds.
In my pathetic little kingdom, right, which is my garden shed, the bottom of the garden here, I'm looking at new guitars at the moment as well. And Tony and I were chatting about it earlier. We're talking about the guitar I'm looking at. It comes with an LR bags, you know. So I mean that's a good start, isn't there?
Yeah. I honestly think that some of the pickups, different pickups suit different guitars. So it's a bit of a guesswork, you know, which pickup's going to suit your guitar best. What guitar are you looking at getting?
Well, I've got a.
Have you got an hour or two?
No. I've got a 40-year-old Takamine at the moment, James. Yeah, which I love, which is really, really old. Right. You know? But it's great, but it's quite old and battered. But I love it. And then I bought a Sigma, which is the Gibson copy of the one you've got, but it's got a sound hole pickup, and it doesn't have that kind of resonance to it, and it hasn't got the brightness. So I'm looking at either. Here James reacts to this now, right? Either one of the Takamine G series guitars, or an Alvarez.
What do you need it for? You do gigs, or is it just
I'd like to use it. I'd like to use it as a kind of a stage guitar, get a decent sound with, you know, no feedback, and be able to control the sound on stage, you know.
And has the Takamine got a built-in pickup system?
The Takamine has, yeah.
And what does the Alvarez have, a built-in pickup system?
The Alvarez comes with the LR bags.
Oh, I see. And what do you go out of? Do you go into something?
I'd probably go through the PA. I would have thought.
See, I would definitely get something. Before you go into the PA. Don't just come straight out of the guitar into the PA. Get a box.
Yeah.
Get something else. I mean, you can get. I've got this thing. I've bought this thing called Red Eye, right? Which is like a preamp, which is pretty cool. And I played it at home, and I thought it was really awesome. So that's one option. Or make a Fishman, or make a bunch of quite complex, sophisticated, not modeling things, but things which will make the guitar sound more natural. Because just coming straight out of the guitar, it can be a bit harsh, you know what I mean, through the PA. So you need something to just make it sound. There's a thing called body res, which is pretty nice actually, not expensive. I think that's made by Audio somebody. I've got that as well. It's only like $100, probably about 80 quid.
Now you're talking.
Right. Check it out, Body Res.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
REZ, and then you just go in, and it's got a little dial on it, and it just makes the guitar sound a little bit more natural.
Yeah, that's what I want. I want it to sound like, you know, like the guitar. You know, I don't want it to sound like anything else.
Check that body res thing out.
Yeah, I will do. I will say to you, one of the things I really Colin put me on to. He's always, without embarrassing you, he's always raving about you and your songwriting, you know. And so I had a look at your stuff. What I really loved about this is going to be a bit odd now, right? But I love those ones you do. It must be in your apartment, I guess. You must, I imagine, just recording into a mobile phone. I don't know. And you just pick up a guitar. You look like you've maybe, you know, got a bit of a hangover or something. You don't, you know, just you're kind of not overdressed. It's very casual. Pick up the guitar and you just play this bloody beautiful song into the phone. You just turn it off again and get on with your life. It's just, I love that. You know.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I actually bought this interface, this microphone. Then it's called the Hype Mic, HYPEMIC, and it's made by who makes it? I can't remember, but it's actually quite expensive. It was like 300 quid, something like that, 400 quid, and it's got a built-in compressor, and you can set the level, and it really makes the sound a lot nicer than just the phone microphone. Yeah. So I'll set that up, and I'll put the phone in a holder, and then, you know, I'll sing a song into that and try and get it sounding nice. And it's pretty easy to do. I just have to decide what song I'm going to play. And
looks like you're making it up, James, when you do that. It's like, I'll play this one, and you just go into it, you know.
Well, kind of. I've got a lot of songs now, to choose from. I did one. I'm proud of one I did a few months ago. I love that song by Gilbert O'Sullivan, "Nothing Rhymes," and I did that.
It's a great song. Yeah.
Isn't that a great song? And
it is brilliant.
I did a version of that and sent it off to Gilbert on his website, and he actually wrote back to me and said how much he liked it, which really thrilled me because I'm such a fan of his and have been ever since I was a little kid. And he wrote back to me and said how much he liked the song, and nice. I did that version, and I do one when the mood takes me. I'll do another song and put it up. People seem to like it.
No, yeah, I love it for what it's worth. Over here in Wales, it's going down well. I'm glad you said that, because I wondered how you managed to capture it so well. But an expensive mic, which is probably me out of the game, Tony, I would have thought, yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
But just to say to you about songwriting, James, because you do write a lot of songs, So do you have any? I know you said I like this. You said you have almost like a schedule, I suppose, within your daytime routine of when you write. But is it any kind of process to this? Is it stuff that comes to you in the night? Do you have things you want to write about? How does it work?
I basically pick up the guitar and start strumming and singing to myself, random melodies against the chords, and wait for something to come along, almost like a visitation that pricks my ears up and makes me think, that's actually a nice little tune against the chord and against, and against what I'm playing with the guitar. I'm just messing around. So I'm just seeing what happens when I pick up the guitar. And if nothing comes within like an hour or something, I'll stop and maybe go back to it, or maybe not. But it's just about a process of elimination. You just keep going until you get something that you that it almost comes at you from nowhere, and you think, "Oh, I like that melody. That's interesting. I like what that's doing." You're kind of subconscious, but you're conscious. You're just letting things happen, and then you've got one ear open to what might happen, and you're directing it internally. And then, if you're really lucky, a lyric will come to you at the same time, like a title, and you'll sing the words, and you might end up with a title and a melody that you particularly like, and then you go from there. If you get a title, let's say you get a title that you like, that would direct the whole song.
Yes.
Title, if you come up with a title, it might be a big green tree, and then you go, okay, I'm going to write a song about a big green tree. That's your song. Oh, big green tree sitting in the garden. You're off and running. Yeah. The lyrics can take a lot longer. I can definitely spend months, if not years, on the words. But that's kind of my process. I just pick up the guitar, mess around until I get something that I like.
Recently, that's really interesting. A number of things you just said, I'll try and remember why they were interesting. One of them was Tony's a massive fan of Brian Wilson, right? Okay, and on the Beach Boys kind of stuff, and he went to see him a few times when he did that tour, the famous tour. And I read his book, and I was reading the book, and I thought I might be in a bit of an arse here, but I was like, because he said he had a lovely way of expressing things, so I was like picking little lines out of the book, and then I ended up turning it into a song called Green Tree House, which is where Brian Wilson lived, and you're talking about green trees. So
that's great, man. That's great. That's great.
So, and the other thing I wanted to say, sorry, James, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, just there's one of the greatest songwriters of all time. I wonder what his process is.
Yeah,
he must just. I don't know. That's a guy who is different to other people. He didn't only just hear the song; he seemed to hear the whole picture. The whole arrangement, what all the instruments were doing, like Mozart or something. Yeah. He created a landscape for his music, which is unlike anything that had ever existed. So that's next level shit.
Yeah. Well, pure genius.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Total one-off. I was watching something earlier today. It just come into my head again. The other thing I just remember what I was going to say. I was watching something today, really little short clip, 47-second clip or something about George Gershwin and Cole Porter, I think, and they were having a conversation about songwriting, and they were saying the mistake that people make is, and I'm an old geezer, so I still write songs, but I don't think I'm going to make it. I'm not going to get there. But younger songwriters, maybe, or up and coming songwriters, they said they make the mistake of trying to write that massive hit rather than writing a song, which is just a song, which in its own right, write the songs to create the songs. I wonder what you think about that.
Well, most of the songs that I like, I've never been hits. Never been hits for anybody. When I went to buy an album, I mean, maybe there was a song on there that was the hit, but that was always probably my least favorite of the songs. And, I'm thinking of the first album I bought, which was Don't Shoot Me, I'm Only the Piano Player. I think it was called Elton John album. And that had Crocodile Rock on it, but I particularly loved the other songs on that album, like Blues for Baby and Me, and there's a couple of other things on there. But and I think of the great songs that I love, most of them you'd never have heard of. They were not hit singles. They were the other songs on the album that had a profound effect on me. So hits, who knows what a hit is as well. What does it mean? It's so arbitrary and so. However, I have to say this: if I had not written I wrote a pop song called "Stay You" years ago, which got me my record deal on Columbia Records. And without that one song, it wasn't a hit, but they thought it might be. And it's because of that song I was able to, in a way, come to America and have what have a life here. So, the business is about singles. At least it was.
Yeah. But you didn't write that song. You didn't write that song to be a hit. You wrote that song because this is James Maddock writing a song, didn't he?
Absolutely. But I did know it was quite poppy when I wrote it. I thought, that sounds quite poppy. But I'd written dozens and 100 songs before I wrote that song, and I've written a lot since. And it's part of the process of being a songwriter. What are you going to do? You're going to write the song, and then you think, it's not going to be a hit, so I'll just discard it.
That'd be all mine gone then.
Yeah, right. Well, not just yours, but everybody's. Millions of songs wouldn't have made it anywhere.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really think about. I don't really think about that at all now. Hits, it's not something that comes into my. What does come into my mind is energy, the energy of a song and the energy of the beat and how that will go over live. That kind of plays into my mind when I'm writing a song. You don't want to have if you've got a gig, you don't want to have a whole set of down songs. You need a bit of, you need to have something that's going to, a trajectory. You're going to do a quiet one, a fast one, a slow one. Yeah. You need a bit of everything. Keep everybody interested.
One of the things which we can't fail to talk about, of course, is the fact that, Springsteen, and apparently Springsteen likes your stuff. I mean, what's that like for you?
Oh, well, it was, he used my songs on his walking music, and I wrote to his management company a few years ago, like 2008, 2009. And then I got a letter from him, and I got she said, "What's your address? He wants to send you something." And then I got this postcard from him, and it's on my wall, saying something like, "I love the song, Stay You. I love the album, the Wood album. He says, Stay You should have been a massive hit. And come back and see me if you're ever in New York, and keep writing and rocking." Something like that, Bruce Springsteen. And I went back to see. I was playing a gig at Giant Stadium or something, and I went backstage, and that, I remember he stuck his. I was waiting back there, and then the door opened, and he stuck his head down. And he goes, "Hey, James, man, come in."
Great.
So I suddenly found myself in his dressing room, just me and him for maybe 10 minutes, just talking about stuff. And he was very, very nice. And then his wife come in and says, "Oh, Bruce, you got to come out." And then we went into another room where there's a lot more people hanging out. And it was great. And then I've seen him at the Light of Day. I do that charity event thing with the Parkinson's in Asbury Park. And through Willie Nile, we got on stage and sang, I think, Because the Night with Bruce. And
oh, wow. Yeah.
It was, it was a great moment. Now, I'm a big fan of Bruce Springsteen's. I think he's awesome. So
there was a guy we were meant to interview today. I don't know whether you'd know him. A guy called Martin Joseph. So Martin Joseph, he in some ways, we were saying earlier, kind of in some ways reminds us a little bit of you, because he's kind of all about what he says in his songs. And again, he's a massive Springsteen aficionado. You know, he's kind of an obsessive about it. So there's a connection there. With yourself, though, you get compared to a whole bunch of people. I mean, you're always going to be. But I mean, some of them, there's some amazing people. You know, Neil Young, for example, Jackson Brown, these kind of people, and then going to people like Bill Withers and Sam Cooke. You know, how do you feel about these kind of things? What do you think who do you think you're kind of, you know, in any way similar to, or have any kind of connection to?
I mean, I love the singer-songwriters. Obviously love my influences. I kind of, sometimes I feel like I'm like the Eagles. Used to love the early Eagles, the acoustic nature of what they did. I love Steve Forbert, you know, those records, very influential to me back in the day. I loved like Delamitri. I think I love what they used to do.
What did I say to you earlier, Tony? What did I say?
We were talking about this earlier on, about your vocal style. Yeah.
What did I say?
Yeah, you said Justin Curry, didn't you?
Yeah. I said, I love Justin Curry about your voice.
Oh, I hope so. I love Justin Curry. I think he's great. I love Paul Brady.
I love Paul Brady too. Yeah.
Big fan of the way Paul sings. Yeah. The voice thing, that's just how it is. You know, it's like I don't try and sing like. That's just how my voice sounds. It just comes out that way. I'm not trying to be like anybody in that way. But you know, anything that works on a guitar, acoustic guitar is going to get. I'm going to get compared to. I mean, Neil Young is there's so many greats. My musical heroes actually nowadays are more. Yeah, I'm more like I'm a Louis Armstrong freak. That's my
right. Okay.
He's my kind of hero. And then my other heroes are more like Ray Charles and Nina Simone.
Wow. Okay.
You know, that's what I can't listen to that. JJ Cale. I love JJ Cale. Yeah. And all these things. And I grew up listening to those records, you know, the West Coast records of you know, Jackson Brown records and the Eagles and all that. So I love Jackson Brown, especially Late for the Sky. I think one of the great records of all time. Astral Weeks, the Van Morrison. I'm a freak for Van Morrison. The Astral Weeks album was a huge influence on me, and still is to this day. So
he's come out with a couple of odd things recently, by the way. I don't know if you've got to that.
Anyway. I did see that. Yeah, what's he saying? Is he kind of trying to say the COVID doesn't exist or something?
It's along those lines. Yeah, it's him and the Gallaghers and Ian Brown. I think they're all sharing the same taxi journey. You know, totally strange. What the hell's that about? I don't know.
I don't know. It's odd, isn't it? Very odd.
Which kind of leads me on to what I wanted to talk to you about was, which is kind of then and now, if you like, you know, Insanity versus Humanity, which was I think 2013, it was a few years back now, and I just got this little off your bio actually. I thought this line, I got to mention this line, an album about what it means to be human, even in these insane times. That was 2013, as Trump was just on his way, kind of in, yeah.
Yeah.
So I wonder what your take on that, you know, where because you obviously have a lot of anger. It hasn't left you. I wouldn't have thought, you know, that album is screaming about it. So how do you feel about stuff now?
I mean, I see America in a different way to most Americans because I'm obviously English and see it from a little outsider's perspective. I don't think Trump is a fascist, but I think he is fomenting fascism in America and fomenting racism. A good third of America is hardcore racist. And these are his troops, these are his people. And, you know, they're never not going to vote for him. I mean, I can understand people voting for Trump 4 years ago when he kind of came around offering this alternative to what has definitely been a pretty, the Democrats have not delivered a lot of things for a lot of people over the years. People are frustrated. at the way things are, and Trump come along promising the world. But after 4 years of his farcical, disastrous corruption, you'd have thought a lot of them would have turned their back on him, but they're still with him. And I think that's the hardcore bunch of diehard racists that this country's got in it, you know, like millions of them. Now, I don't know what's going to happen, but hopefully he'll lose the election. But he's saying that even if he loses it, he's what he could unleash. You know, this is not just like England. People have guns here. They have AK-47s, and they have, you know, anti-tank guns in their back. There's a whole group of people who've got a shitload of guns, and he could unleash those people, and it could be really almost like a civil war here in after the election, if he's prepared to call on his people to go out into the streets to contest the election. And he's basically trying to make out that the whole election could be a fraud unless he wins it. It's extremely crazy, you know, and he's an extremely crazy person. He's just had the COVIDs, and then he's full of steroids, and he's coming out with all these crazy things. He's mad anyway, and now he's even more crazy. So it's a potentially extremely, I think, very dangerous time. And then what happens after that? He won't go away quietly. I think he's going to maybe start a third organization. But that's America. You know, that's what we've got here. Yeah. It's a very strange place, man. Very strange.
How does that make you feel about your future in terms of, you know, that this is where you are now. This is your place.
Well, you know, you fight and you live where you are. You don't just abandon it because, you know, I think that the majority of America is wonderful people. You don't just walk away from it. It's not like the fascists and the racists they're going to just have it their own way, because we have to fight them. You know, we have to get on the streets. We have to do what we have to do to fight back. And I'm a part of that. You know, I did lots of, you know, in the Black Lives Matter demonstrations. I was on a lot of those. There's millions of people that are frustrated at the way things are in America. Yeah. And I'm just part of that movement, as I was when I was in England. You know, I was in the SWP in England, and I've always been a socialist, and I've always been a revolutionary socialist, I've not been a Labourite. I was way to the left of that. And here, obviously, I'm way to the left of the Democratic Party politically. Yeah. You know, you fight where you are, and I will be a part of that movement.
See, that's really interesting, because there's an argument. I work in a university, right? So I've got, you know, young, impressionable students. I don't force my opinions on them, but we do have these conversations. And, you know, like Tony was alluding to earlier, you know, if the chancellor of the current government is almost given a kind of value judgment, right? You know, you're just a musician, you're just an artist, you're just a performer, you know, go and put those vegetables on the shelves. Hurry up now, come on. You've had your fun, sort of thing, yeah? But yeah. Is there any, because it's interesting what you said about your political perspective. I wonder if you could perceive some sort of downward curve on those people who might wish to express, you know, an alternative viewpoint and to share, you know, their kind of creative content in a reactionary way.
What do you mean?
I mean, if like the musicians and the performers historically, if we go back to the early days, like, you know, Pete Seeger, Woody Guthrie, this kind of thing, through Billy Bragg, etc., where there's an expressionism within music, where you can share values and opinions through music. I wonder if there's a downward curve on kind of music as a form of expression.
You mean the repression against that?
Yeah. I'm just putting it out there, you know.
Well, I think there always will be. There'll always be people that, you know, like Pete Seeger, who I met and played with once. Wow. And people who try to reflect the society. That's kind of the job of an artist, is to reflect the society in which we live. And of course there will be reactionaries against it. You know, that's Trumpism. That's the Trumpers. They and that's also, you know, the Tories. They're not really people that they never had any respect for culture. You know, they don't want you to be a musician. They think musicians are just wasters.
Yeah.
Look at the Rolling Stones, you know, look at all the music that's been made. A lot of it's been rebellious against the establishment. Who is the establishment? Well, it's, you know, it's Trump and it's the Tories, and, you know, it's part of the class war.
Yeah. Wow. That was a good conversation. Bringing it back to music, right? As we get towards the end, really great, by the way. We're not arguing with you. You might notice. Looking forward to you've kind of got a performance and a gig coming up this weekend. You know, it's said circumstances are very different. What's lined up? What's happening with you now in terms of doing stuff?
Well, actually, I haven't got a gig this weekend. I think you might have misunderstood me. My next gig is on the 8th.
Sorry. Yeah.
My gig's on the 18th at Rockwood. I'm doing 2 shows, a duo show at 1 o'clock for people in England and Europe. So some of my friends are in Italy and England. It's a bit late for them if I go on later. So I try and do an earlier show. And then at 5 o'clock, I'm doing in the same place. I'm doing a full band show. So I've got 2 shows that day. And then this weekend, I'm just basically hanging out with Brian and Clark upstairs. And I'm kind of, they play around here in Woodstock, so I'm just going to kind of tag along with them and a few other people. And then I'm a little bit worried about what the winter holds in store, you know, for musicians, because it's been pretty reliant on. There hasn't been a lot of gigs outside, but there's been a few. Now, you know, New York winters can be extremely cold, and you can't really do much outside. It's just not practical. So I don't really know. It's going to be a bit bleak from now till, you know, March or April. I don't really know I don't know what's going to happen. It's very bleak, very bleak.
I'm trying to end on a positive note here, but I'm struggling, you know.
Yeah, there ain't much. I mean, on a positive note, I'll still do online things, and musicians will find a way to get their music out there, and it's as long as the fans keep tuning in and you know, wishing as well, and I get a lot of encouragement from my fans, and it keeps me going a lot to know that the music means something to them as we do it. So that's something that we'll continue to do. I'll continue to write. I mean, maybe the winter months. I just put out an album, you know, and I really love my new album, but it's maybe a bit early to start thinking about a new album. But I'm a songwriter, so I'm constantly challenged by that process to write new songs and to keep going.
That's No Time to Cry, James, is it?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. No Time to Cry. That's my new album, which came out at the end of August, really. And I'm just writing songs all the time, and hopefully, when you're a songwriter, you're constantly challenged by that process. You want to write a great song, you want to write the next great song, and you just keep trying for it. So that'll be my job over the next few months. Yeah. But in terms of how I survive financially, that's another. I mean, a lot of people in this situation. I'm not the only one. There's millions of people in America. Half of the restaurants are about to close for good. I don't know what venues are going to be left after this whole thing goes, because the rents and the landlords are, you know, you try and rent in a venue in London, you're paying $30,000-$40,000 a month just for the space. So how on earth you can continue doing that as it's closed? Yeah. For month after month, it's beyond. You know, there's no help for these people either at the moment. It's extremely dire. So where we'll be when we come out the other end of this remains to be seen. I mean, I know that we will rise from the ashes, and we will get back to where we were in some way, but it will be different. And a lot of people may have left New York and gone somewhere else and done something else, because the music business it's never easy to make money doing music. It's extremely difficult to make a fucking dime. In New York is really no different. It's expensive to live here. You know what I mean? It's not a cheap city. No. So to make your living doing music, even if you're brilliant, and I know plenty of brilliant musicians that are incredible, and they're struggling. Everybody's struggling. It's very difficult. And this has made a bad job. This has made a tough situation.
Yeah, of course.
Even harder.
I found a way to end on a positive, James. Yeah. Okay. Leicester City. Are they going to make Europe? They're going to make the top 4.
No chance. No chance. I mean, we had a good 3 games, and then we lost last week. And I think we had we'll see. You know, I think we're playing Villa, aren't we, on Saturday, tomorrow?
Don't know. Maybe, yeah. Yeah, I think you're right, actually, yeah.
It's international weekend, I think, so it might be
weekend
next
after, isn't it? Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a Leicester City supporter. I do think that we were flattered by the. We had a terrible second half of the season last year. We were if we hadn't have had an amazing first half, we'd probably be in the relegation zone. So, I don't really. I love Leicester and it's my team, but I don't know. I'm not. If we can finish top half, I'll be happy.
I think you're nailed on for that. If you try being a Cardiff City fan, that's all I can say to you. You know. Anyway, James, thanks ever so much. Absolute pleasure to talk to you.
You're fantastic.
Check it out on the site keepcardifflive.com. And yeah, thanks for your time. Have a great weekend and look after yourself.